Now, another thing that's fun to talk about when you're talking about preparing canvases and all the different things is how do we apply texture? What are the different ways you can create effects? Well, let's take a look at a couple here. Here's one. Now, if you take a look here, we have an 18 by 24 canvas, and if I can get them to close in on this, you can see all of the brush strokes, okay? Now, what I've done here, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to take one of my brushes here. I'm going to show you how I like to apply my gesso. Now, some of you, again, that like a smoother surface, you can use your Hake brush. In fact, I think we'll just do both of these here, just so that you'll see how to apply it properly. Let's take our Hake brush, and let's find us a canvas here. I think I've got one down here somewhere. Yeah, we'll just use this canvas board. This will work good. Actually, I think we'll just use this. This will probably work out all right. So you just want a real smooth, but just a little bit more body to the canvas. You know, get rid of some of those little things like this, little peaks of paint. What I do is take my Hake brush, and if you use the liquid gesso, that works out fine too. Just for sealing purposes. But I prefer the thicker gesso. What I normally do, and you've seen me do this on the show, but I just wet the canvas like this. Just a little water, and then I just go through with the gesso and I roll it on like this. And then I go back after I've rolled it on there and I use these big X's. These are my traditional blending strokes that we use even for colored things like in the skies and stuff. Get a nice even distribution, and see that creates a nice soft blend. You don't see any texture there. But what that does is that seals up these little, see this has a weave in it, and it's like a little patchwork. If you had a magnifying glass, you would see that weave real clear, but it's a weave, and some artists don't like that to be so heavy. So what I do is put gesso on here, and I roll it on like this. Then I go back with X's, and I blend it into the weave so that it kind of seals it and fills it up. Now, it's your decision on how smooth you want it to be. So once you've applied the gesso here, let it dry for an hour or two. Go back with your sandpaper, lightly sand it with the sandpaper pad, roll it like this, then feel it with your finger, and if it's still got too much texture, gesso it again, then gesso it again, and then gesso it again. You can gesso it as many times as you want to. You can actually get this to an actual slick surface. Now, a lot of you have heard of Dalhart Winberg. Now, I haven't really got to know him very well over the years, but he's a great, really well-known artist in Austin, Texas, and I really have admired his work for years. Now, he paints on masonite panels, and he gets a real slick surface, and I don't know how exactly he does all of it, but I do know if you gesso it and sand it, gesso it and sand it, you can almost get it as slick as glass, and that's the kind of surface he likes to work on, that real slick surface. So it's all about how many applications. So someone said, well, what happens if will it do odd things if I put too much gesso on there? No, as long as you put thin coats on, let it cure and dry, sand it, let another coat on. You can put 10, 12, 15 coats of gesso on it, won't hurt it, okay? Because remember, it's flexible. It's acrylic, and it bends and gives with the different types of, you know, moisture in the air and so forth, so it's a real good medium to work with. So if you like a smoother surface, many coats and sand in between. Now, if you're like me, I really prefer a thicker gesso. A little texture like I showed you here. I'm going to show you how to apply it, but here's the end result. You see the all the brush strokes, but here again, if you run your hand across here, frankly, you can feel all these little things kind of poking your finger, and some of them are kind of sharp. So again, once you've applied the gesso, and take your little sandpaper pad and roll it, and all these little sharp peaks and points will come off. You know, see that one right there? I can actually feel it. It almost hurts. Some of these get real sharp. Just go across that and then test it and see if it kind of blends into the surface. Just roll it around here and go all the way through. You can't hurt this, you guys. Remember, this is hard. And when it dries, it's hard as a rock. And it's flexible, so just go through and sand it like this. And it's okay to see the movement if that's what you like, and that's what I like. So let me show you how you apply this little bit of texture. It's really fun to do that. Now, to apply texture, of course, you can use any size brush you want to, depending on what size texture you want. I prefer to use, most of the time, my number 10 bristle brush. Now, most of you are pretty stingy with your paint, I've noticed, but what I do is I take the paint like this and I really load it. Now, I want you to look how much I have on my brush there, see? So here's what I do. I normally start like down in a corner or something, and I put the paint on like this, and I use big, broad, bold strokes. Now, you see all those little peaks that are developing? And you can work some of that out, but when that dries, those are the things that you got to sand out. So like this, just go back and forth and kind of skim the surface, get some of the real thick blobs out, because you want a fairly even distribution. Now, this is the patchwork way. This is how you apply the gesso if you just want just sort of a standard brush stroke going through there. Now, don't be afraid to add a touch of water now and then. See, I can add a little water to make it slide on there just a little bit better. But again, see, it's just sort of X strokes, little patchwork design, and it's real rough, so it looks kind of awful. But when you sand it and then you apply the color later for your painting, it's beautiful. Okay, now that's one way. The other way is a little more, you might say, free and impressionistic, and I like this way of doing it too. I'll take it on, I'll just go like this. Take the side of my brush and just scrub it on there, going every direction, making sure the canvas is covered. And these next few weeks, you guys are going to be just full of all kinds of neat little tricks and things like this, how to glaze. But see, I can go through here and give this a really unique texture that's very fascinating and fun for different effects. I use this a lot when I'm doing a still life or portraits or figure where you have a dress or something, kind of flows into the movement of that. The patchwork stuff works best for landscapes, sometimes a still life, you know, where you have a little more tightly controlled things. So keep in mind that the longer, more aggressive strokes like this are more for flowing things that have to have more of a direction that has, you know, meaning and purpose. The X strokes or the patchwork is more for your open things like landscapes or even some tighter things.